In an interesting little ditty of a main event we had, um, a round two, no contest in the fight between Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards, and it felt like the fight was just starting to air out. The fight was just starting to like get those established dynamics to it, and a thing like that goes and happens.
Man,
Guys, first impressions.
ouchie, wow, that looks really painful. Man, it's honestly, first of all, shouts out to both fighters. Leon Edwards came out and did his thing. That jab was quick. He was super quick, super quick. Um, his high kick was really good. What else? He looked really strong. He's super tall, looked in shape as usual, but man, after a first round where he's been putting it on Bilal Muhammad, that second round he for some reason chooses to throw, I think it's a straight and a high kick, and just sticks his finger deep, deep into the eye socket of Bilal Muhammad. Um, and you could see instantly Bilal is just writhing in agony. I haven't seen a lot of that where we have a fighter who's being poked in the eye and is literally crying. He thought he was he. I bet in that moment he thought he was blind because the way he
Yeah.
was
Guys,
screaming,
I'm sorry, someone just stopped by. Can you repeat everything you just said?
because the way he was screaming and shouting, he would have like it seemed like he thought he was blind. Like it was super messed up. But I saw a post today, and I think he's gonna make his eye is starting to recover vision, and he's gonna make a full recovery. So thank goodness for that. But man, that was gruesome. And I know that after the event, a lot of people started talking about whether now's the time where we change up the UFC gloves, simply because like, man,
This
before
is
we know it,
happening.
somebody's
Yeah.
gonna get blinded in there. Like, it's
Yeah,
like
David, the time wasn't today. The time was years ago.
Yeah.
Like when, numerous fighters, there was one in the Ultimate Fighter. There have been many people that have had torn corneas, scratched corneas, all kinds of gruesome injuries where, you know, it's not even necessarily the fault of the fighters because you're just conditioned day in and day out to hand fight, to reach out, to grab people, to when you're kicking, right? The traditional technique that's taught is to throw that feint of that straight on the same side. That hand comes out, and man, maybe changing the gloves won't be the be all and end all solution, but it's going to fix something, and maybe other solutions. People want one smoking gun. Maybe it's a couple of solutions, but the gloves are going to help. How many, for those of you guys that have watched a lot of fights back in Pride, how many eye pokes do you remember in Pride? I don't remember nearly as many, but they had those curved style gloves that forced the hand into more of a curved position.
Oh,
not in the same way though. I think the UFC ones just like force the fingers to like straighten out in a way that other gloves don't. Um, and in general, I agree with Stefano. I think it's going to take way more than just the gloves. I think we're going to have to start punishing fighters for keeping their fingers out because like and I get it. Like it's a
yeah.
natural reaction, and I get it. But like, I mean, at the same time, like somebody's gonna get blinded in there. That's just the way I feel personally.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, I just think it's weird because, I remember a couple years back. Was it a couple years? No, it was a couple months actually. It was very recent where Trevor Whitman goes on JRE and shows off his gloves, right? And no, it was the Rose Namajunas. It was right after she beat Joanna, so it was a couple years back. And the glove is curved. The glove has an aerodynamic feel. It's comfortable, and you can still you need to exert strength to do things like stretch out your hand and what's the word? Like do the stop sign because that's kind of the way you're being taught now is to do the stop sign,
It'll be a
right?
little more. It'll be a little more like this if you extend your hand out, which is a good alternative because you can still. You're not going to get the same eye pokes, but you can still grab. You can still use your long guard, right? It just
Yeah. And yeah, basically what happened was Trevor goes to Dana and Dana's like, yeah, it's a great idea. well, not Dana, but the UFC, and goes, yeah, it's a great idea. And basically what they got hung up on was licensing, creative control, right? Things like that. So it wasn't about like concerns about safety, concerns about material, will it affect the fighting? It was about money. It was about money.
I don't
And
know if I believe that though. Like, I don't
that's what
know
Trevor
if I
Whitman said.
know anything. I mean, that sounds, with all due respect, that sounds like a good story, but Dana could just reproduce the same gloves, the same idea for cheaper. Outsource everything, cut out Trevor Whitman, and just say, hey, I have this idea. Instead of making it curved 45 degrees, it's curved 43 degrees. Um,
Just a quick question though. Was it because they have some kind of a contract going with the current people or something like that? Was it something like that? Like, what was it?
I,
Why was it a money issue? Because it'll not because it would cost more from Trevor Whitman. Like,
I can't remember the exact quote from Trevor Whitman, and I'm paraphrasing, and I'd have to go back and watch the actual interview. But basically, the idea was that Trevor Whitman has a patent on it, and because he has a patent on it, if the UFC were to use it, Trevor Whitman would get some sort of compensation. Um, and they just couldn't agree to what the deal would be. And so because of that, they kept going. And look, I'm not saying the UFC's evil, right? For like wanting, to make as much money as possible from the curved gloves or not wanting to pay Trevor Whitman a fee. But what I am saying though is at some point when you see DC nearly get his eye gouged out, when you see Stipe have a torn retina, and now this situation, which thank the Lord, that nothing serious came out of
oh,
it.
not to mention Anthony Johnson requiring several eye surgeries, right?
Oh yeah, from what's that guy's name? But that fight,
Kevin Burns.
Kevin Burns, right? So, and Michael Bisping. Well, that wasn't after
That was
maniacal,
yeah.
but the
What
idea is that it, at some point when safety's involved, maybe I'm not even sure if this is the exact full story, but that's what Trevor Whitman said. And look, I don't know if Trevor Whitman's answer glove is the answer, but it's time to start thinking.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, there doesn't have to be one answer. We can have several things that together come together and make it a solution. It's like saying, what's the solution for groin strikes? And someone's like, well, people should wear cups. And you're like, well, cups won't prevent groin strikes. They won't do this. Yeah, but it's a part of the solution to not make groin strikes as devastating, right? And similarly, let's say these gloves reduce eye pokes by 30%. Wouldn't that be a worthy investment? And then in conjunction with other things, eventually, you're never going to get eye pokes to zero. That's impossible, right? But if you could reduce eye pokes by 60% through one or two different things, wouldn't you? I don't know. And to, I just wanted to reflect with you guys on the fight as a whole, because for me, up until that point, things did not look good for Belal Muhammad. Not
I was gonna say.
necessarily because he was enduring a hellacious amount of punishments just yet, but it seemed like more of a Leon Edward fight than a Belal Muhammad fight,
I
right?
was saying off the like before the pod started, Leon was on fire,
He was
and
on
it
yeah,
fire.
wasn't not necessarily that Bilal was getting his ass kicked, like not in that range, but the things were he didn't look rusty. I thought maybe in the early going he would have a bit of rust on him, and he'd have to get things shaken up, and maybe Bilal could gain some confidence there, and as the fight wore on, and things could be interesting. But Leon looked like Leon from the word go.
Yeah.
And it looked like kind of like a Stephen Thompson versus Jeff Neal kind of thing where it just looked like it was going to be a quintessential Leon performance as the fight went on, right?
Yeah, the fight began and Bilal Muhammad started circling the octagon, I'm like, oh man, this is not his night. Like, you have to be applying Bilal Muhammad, if you're a pressure fighter, as he is, right, and relies on volume, he doesn't necessarily have that one shot power to start you, and you get your finishes and you get your victories through accumulation. And you're not able to get that going, you're not able to dictate the fight, you're in for a long night. And to be fair, it seemed like he had more successes in the clinch than I thought. He had double underhooks at one point and was able to secure, chest to chest and really neutralize Leon Edwards for a long amount of time. He looked very strong in the clinch. But out in the open, he was just eating straight shots repeatedly. That head kick seemed to be paying dividends for Leon Edwards. I don't know. What do you guys think? What did you get out of the fight?
Yeah, I said the same thing. High kick money for Leon Edwards. What really surprised me was also Leon Edwards was switching it up in terms of incorporating some grappling. You would think, I think Belal Muhammad has a pretty decent grappling resume. So you would think Leon Edwards would want to keep it on the feet, especially if he's having success, because, he was doing well keeping things on the outside, but for some reason, even when he landed some shots, he would not rush into the Muay Thai clinch, but he would engage in grappling. And he looked okay, all things considered. For British dudes, the stereotypes is English British dudes can't grapple. I think Leon Edwards might be the first British dude, other than Paul Craig, of course.
Arnold Allen as well.
Arnold Allen, that's true.
Wrestling, governor? What's that? Never heard of wrestling.
He can really grapple, man. No, but he looks really tough. And he's 6'2", 170, 6'2". It just looked like Belal was having trouble getting into range because every time Leon Edwards' jab was money. It was so quick. Constantly switching. I don't know. I'm one of those people who's a little bit on the fence about fighters who switch. I think people hype that up a little bit too much. But I do think he was switching, but his best stuff came from southpaw. By far, it wasn't even close. And yeah, man, I think it's gonna be a tough fight for anybody in the world.
Yeah. I mean, everything you guys said. I mean, Leon Edwards was more accurate. His punches were more powerful. They were doing more damage, and I feel that it would have been a matter of time, even without the IPO. I have a couple questions. One, why was his layoff a year and a half? Two, if he was ranked third, why did they give him somebody who I feel was but just, I feel like they could have got better competition for Leon Edwards.
Well, not during a pandemic. First of all, he was a replacement, right?
Yeah.
So
he was a replacement. Okay.
He was a
I'm
replacement.
glad you brought this
Kamzat-
up, though, because
Kamzat was supposed to be. Kamzat was originally supposed to be slated, which I think for this fight, which I think as well, Kamzat is a bit below Leon Edwards' status and what he's managed to accomplish. The year and a half layoff is not his fault.
I think a Kamzat matchup would have been better just because the size equivalency was a little bit more.
I got to be honest. I think Kamzat Belal Muhammad has done much more to earn this opportunity than Kamzat has. Kamzat's had 3 wins in the UFC, but 2 of them against much lower competition who probably won't stick around in the UFC for very long.
I'm pretty sure both of them are cut already.
Both of them are cut already. The third one, Gerald Mearshart, seems to be on the downtrend. As far as Belal Muhammad, let's just pull open his definitely not under normal non-pandemic circumstances worthy of getting a third-ranked opponent in a main event. But let's pull up his resume here, okay? So we've got the Diego Lima win, which was, good. Then a win over Lyman Good in 2020. And then before that, beat Takashi Sato, beat Curtis Millender, lost a decision to Jeff Neal, beat Chance Raconteur. So he's beat Tim Means, beat Jordan Mean, beat Randy Brown. Back in 2016, he lost by KO to Vicente Luque, but who hasn't? Beat Augusto Montano, lost to Ellen Joban, but that's back in 2016. So you see what I'm saying? He's on a bit of a streak right now. He's been doing the damn thing for quite a while. Does he deserve a third-ranked opponent? No. But it seems like nobody above Leon Edwards wants to fight him for obvious reasons, and people below him aren't necessarily clamoring to get in there either.
Yeah.
So I mean, what was the? I'm sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I'm just glad you brought this up because I think that Leon Edwards is in that weird limbo where because he's been trying it lately to varying effect, but because he's not necessarily a talker, a charismatic guy, you don't necessarily have to be a trash talker, but you need to get your name out there. You need to be interesting. And because Leon Edwards doesn't necessarily have that charisma with him, he's not necessarily a guy you can make money off of. So if you're a Jorge Masvidal or a Colby Covington, you don't necessarily look for Leon Edwards because he's A, not going to be that money fight, and B, he's not exactly an easy fight. Like you saw in
No.
you saw in that match
Yeah,
against Belal Muhammad. He's got a lot to work.
his last loss was to the champion in Kamaru Usman, and I think he's going to even give the wrestlers at the top of this division problems, just based on how disciplined he can stand in these clinches. Like, yes, he might get taken down and put in the grind cycle, but I still think he has a lot of stylistic challenges to offer the top three of this division.
And he's strong enough and physical enough to get up, even if you take him down. Like, I generally think, like, yeah, he's gonna, like, on any given day, depending on the fight, he could be a champion, just depending on how the fight goes. You know what I mean? Like, he's got all the tools.